if Haiti was kind of headed in the right direction, a lot of people would probably go back. Not everyone, obviously, but I think a lot of them.
Welcome to Pushing Your Peace podcast, the number one podcast in the region for living a progressive and happier life. On this episode, I'm joined by Lou Charles, the co-executive producer of the groundbreaking documentary Maransara, which explores the strength of Haitian women in commerce and the challenges facing Haiti's political and economic future. In this rich conversation, Lou breaks down the stereotypes, speaks truth to misconceptions, and calls for unity across the Haitian diaspora. If this conversation informs you or inspires you, drop a comment below, like this episode, and share it with your community. Every click, comment, and share helps spread these important conversations even further. Now sit back, relax, and let's get ready to push some peace. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to welcome the co-executive producer of Maransara. If I apologize if I pronounce it wrong. He is a part of a phenomenal team that has produced a very impactful journey documenting the strength of Haitian women and the what I would call the trade aspect of their society as well. So I've had an opportunity to view the film, and I'm going to give him an opportunity to tell us about the process he went through in getting this done. And you would have gone to Haiti to film this, correct?
Yeah. So Etan, the creator of the film, was actually based in Haiti. So he did a lot of the shooting in Haiti, and some of the, I'll say a lot of the producers were outside the country. I also have to give a special nod to Lunice Sarin. She was the editor of the project, and primarily her and Etan put a lot of, I should say, sweat equity into the film. And they were the ones that kind of brought the soul of the film out, because, me born in New York, I wasn't really, connected to Haiti. My mom obviously is from Haiti, but, it's a little bit different. But they're the ones that kind of deserve the bulk of the credit. And of course, like Natalie and Wesley and everybody else on the team who really brought the soul out to the film. So I kind of assumed at first that I was going to be more in lead position. And I don't know if that's like an American thing or whatever the case may be, but quite honestly, they had everything kind of working. I just kind of had to play my role, play my part, and, doing, interviews and screening the film as much as we have is my way of kind of playing my role to kind of, help the whole team along. So it's all a team effort at the end of the day.
Lou, what I appreciate about you is that right off the top, I can hear your humility, because sometimes we come from these developed countries and we go back to, countries that are third world, and we feel like, oh, they don't know what they're doing, or they don't have this put together. But we do. It's just that, not we, but, in the sense that they do. And it's just that they don't have the exposure of first world country or the opportunities of a first world country. But the talent is definitely there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen, throughout my years, obviously, I've seen a lot of great Caribbean films. I mean, Shadas. I don't know if
Oh, for sure.
if you're familiar
Everybody
with it,
watch
but
Shadows.
everybody knows Shadas. Yeah, but I remember Shadas. I remember seeing Shadas when I was like maybe in high school, like, and it was bootleg in New York City because it wasn't out like official. And I remember I was like, this is a fantastic film, and it was like, it was about obviously Jamaica and Jamaicans coming here and kind of making an impact, on this side. But it was a great film, and I thought it could have easily made, at least 10, 20 million at the box office because the story was so great. But again, it didn't have the support, and it didn't. I don't know what the deal looked like behind the scenes, but if it was the right deal and the right situation, I mean, the state of Caribbean filmmaking could have taken leaps and bounds 10 years ago, because of the impact that Shot has had. It's still a classic in my mind. And I've seen like over the years and, where you see Caribbean filmmaking on YouTube, where you have like some of the diaspora from whatever different island, you kind of want to specify. They're doing great films, but again, they don't have the infrastructure and the foundation to kind of take it to the next level where you're employing, we'll call it 100 people from set designers to camera operators to grip people to lighting. And, you know, you need that experience to kind of take you to the next step. So, you know, unfortunately for, you know, a lot of Caribbean filmmakers, they have to kind of fall into a system where, you know, their ideas aren't really cherished, and you know the way they go about doing things is kind of derided or looked down upon. And it's the same kind of situation you have with American black filmmakers, where even now, you know, we're struggling to get our stories heard. So you can kind of double that for the Caribbean filmmakers. And you know, sometimes that kind of causes like friction because people are kind of fighting for the same plate, you know, if that makes sense. But I think there's enough out there that we can, you know, if we structure it properly and, you know, do what we have to do, you know, we can kind of make room for everybody's stories. But everybody's stories are good, you know. You have some bad ones too, but, you know, there are a lot of good ones out there. You know, I just think that we just have to do a better job of bringing that out and building around that ecosystem so we can kind of tell these stories properly and get our just due.
Now, on the lines of storytelling, we are gonna dive now into Made in Sarah or Sarah,
Mhm.
right? Why did you and the team feel the need to tell the story of Haitian women and commerce the way y'all did? Why y'all felt like it was important for the world to see that side of the Haitian culture?
Sure. So I mean, I think everyone had their different kind of motivations to kind of work on the film. Me personally, so I went to Brazil in like 2014 for the World Cup. I was like betting on like soccer games. So while I'm going, my mother tells me like offhand, like, "Oh, you know, Haiti went to the World Cup." And I was like, "Okay." Like I thought it was just one of those like, "Yo, you know, my country did it too" kind of things. And I was like, "All right, whatever." But then I actually looked it up, and it was actually real. But I also saw that there was no one did the story for it because this was like back in the '70s during the dictatorship. Son, not father. Baby doc do I. So you know, when I started looking up the story, and then you know, it was around the same time I formed the company with my friend, Street Team Productions. So we were kind of looking at like ways to kind of get our foot in the game. So you know, that was one idea that I had that I'm still kind of working on to finish the film. So at the same time of that happening, Etan and his team was kind of working on Maransara. You know, as independent filmmakers, you have a start and stop kind of thing because you have to get the money to do the projects, and you know it's always like a seesaw, like a balance, if you will. So at the time that I saw, you know, at the time I think the trailer was out on YouTube and it only had a few views, but I was like, but I saw it. I don't know how I saw it, but I just happened to see it on YouTube. So once I saw that film, the trailer, I mean, and then I was already working on my project about Haiti. I just decided to kind of reach out to him to see if I could help him finish because he was a lot further along than I was. And plus, I felt like working on the film would have kind of gave me the experience in terms of the culture and just kind of working in Haiti to kind of do a better film on my end because you know it's two different projects. So I know for his motivation, he's the son of a Maransara. His mother worked as a Maransara for a few years, and you know that experience obviously shaped him in a lot of different ways. And plus, being a journalist in Haiti, you know he's you know able to kind of report on different. You know he's seen it all. I've seen a lot in Haiti, I guess, covering as a journalist. So he just kind of you know wanted to tell this story, and you know that it's kind of you know and of course like the other producers have their own kind of stories to it,
Right.
and we just kind of came together to try to finish a good film, I think. So
And you know what would have been the reaction you were hoping to get from the public once they viewed the film?
you know, to be honest, I just kind of we just kind of came with it within a blank slate. I think for you know, Haitians in Haiti, I mean, I think would have been probably the first time they seen the story of the Manasara kind of told in that way. So not just profiling like, you know, 10 minutes of this Masha's life, you know, kind of really diving into the societal issues that affect them, what holds them back, you know, some of the issues that they're facing while trying to put food on the table for their kids and families and everything else. So I think, you know, there have been profiles in the past regarding Manansara's. I think this, you know, selfishly speaking, this is like probably the first kind of film that kind of dived into the all the issues that affect the Maransara and how important they are in Haitian society.
I want to touch on something the film touched on, and that's, the political side of the Haitian struggle. And it seems to be ongoing. In the documentary, it called for the firing of a president. And now Haiti today doesn't have a president. Uh, you
Sure,
know, I don't want you to go too deep into it because I know how sensitive this can be. However, I would be doing my audience a disservice if I don't ask you these questions as well.
sure,
What
sure, sure.
based on the film and the current state of Haiti, what are the people looking for? What type of leadership are the people looking for?
I would say, all right, so there's a couple different answers for your question, but I would say the first important answer is non-corrupt leaders. If obviously it's very hard to stamp out corruption, but corruption is kind of the base what of where Haiti is today. So the president that you see in the film that they're protesting, President Jovenel Moise, I think he was actually killed today. I think today is the anniversary of his death. He had a lot of allegations of corruption regarding his presidency and the people around his presidency. And if you think about it, people, whatever they think about Haiti, they know that there's been a lot of money thrown at the situation. There's been a lot of time, a lot of everything they've kind of try to come up with so many different solutions to kind of help the country. But I think the issue is the corruption is kind of the base of it all, because you can throw money at a situation, but if the people are stealing the money, or the money's not going to the right place, you're just back at square one essentially. And I think for the longest time, that's what's happened with Haiti. So from the outside looking in, people have Haiti fatigue, quote unquote, because they feel like they've thrown so much effort and money at the issue that nothing is getting done. But from the inside, you have people who are taking that money and kind of doing, not building roads, not building bridges, not fixing up the dams, not protecting the airport. So, there aren't gunshots at the airplanes. So there's a lot of, and I understand, there's a lot of, angst when it comes to Haiti because people feel like they've done so much and nothing's got done. But at the same time, um, I feel like you have a situation where the right people aren't in place, and if the right people are in place, the right policies are in place, and it just becomes a cycle of like nothing getting done, nothing being moved, nothing, no progress at all. And it's bad for the country, and it's bad for the people who want to help the country. And with their president and a lot of the political leadership in the country, it seems like they aren't interested in doing the right thing. Like they aren't doing the right thing, and they aren't interested in doing the right thing.
Right.
So you have a situation where, you know, the outside of the country is kind of making decisions with the people inside the country who don't have any intention of doing right by the country. So now you just have a cycle where, of nothing getting done and people just kind of standing still, and the
You
country
know,
suffers.
Lou, in the film, there's this lady, she's crying and she's pleading and she's talking about, the young people leaving the country for better opportunities, right? And I look
Mm-hmm,
throughout the world, in the European soccer leagues, throughout American professional sports businesses, there is
mm-hmm,
a good portion of the diaspora of Haitians that are quite wealthy. So,
mm-hmm.
from your experience, why aren't they coming together to uplift Haiti, even if it's just building up one town every 10 years? Why is it that the ladies in that film couldn't reach out to a capital fund and rebuild the market that was burned down? It was so many things running through my mind while I was
Sure,
watching that film.
sure. So a lot of different reasons, right? So a lot, I can speak like from the American side. So, when you have like a huge diaspora community living outside of the home country, there are a lot of a lot of NGOs and charities form, but there are different motivations for those charities and organizations. So not everyone is going to agree on the specific route. I should say, because certain people are from like the South region of Haiti and they want to fix the South. You can't begrudge them for that, right? Because that's their hometown. They want to do what they're going to do for their place. But if everyone thinks like that, then nothing essentially is going to get done because there's people are going to fight over which region gets what. People bring in their own biases into the conversation and situation, so you always have that kind of natural like issue between people's personal motivations as opposed to the organization's goals and what would be best for the country, because everyone assumes that their route would be best for the country, right? Most of the food I believe in Haiti is grown in the southern region. So you can make the argument that fixing the South would, make more food, which would, feed the country, etc. But a lot of the industrial benefits are in the northern part of the country. So if you fix up the airports in the north, you could bring in more flights. You fix up the road, people can get to where they're going faster, and you could make an argument for that too. So they had in my opinion, there would have to be a meeting of the minds and maybe just getting a small group that could speak for all the, you know, different organizations to kind of agree on one agenda. But, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's a hard ask. So I think people just kind of end up going to their own individual corners and kind of doing what they can. And, eventually it just becomes a slow grind to some sort of progress. But from the inside of the country, you know, it's hard to get something done, right? Because you have like different political players who aren't interested in doing what's right by the country. So if you have a plan to, let's say, fix whatever we'll call like put fire hydrants all over the
Yeah.
Haiti, you have to now deal with people whose family may have a contract with certain government entities where if you come in and put in all the fire hydrants, then now who's gonna they lose their contract, so they have a natural you know like benefit to not seeing you do that, right? Because in Haiti the economy is very it's like stratified, meaning like there's a few players on top, and they can and the person that owns the water company also owns the fire truck company, who also owns the supermarket, who also owns the gas station, who has interest in the bank, who has interest in the wholesaler, who also is a shareholder at the airport. So if you affect any of it, and, who knows what the size of the families are, but if you start affecting that and you start bringing in progress into the country, you start eating into their profit margin and their ability to take care of their families and everything else. So then, you have a natural reason to keep kind of progress out of the country. So as good as these organizations may be in their plans to kind of bring progress to the country and for the people, for the benefit of the people, is they have natural barriers to that kind of progress being done, because again, like the corruption or the not addressing the corruption into the country means that these some of these families or some of these companies that have monopolies essentially in this country, we're talking about Haiti, um, are essentially, they have to fight against that progress because, they don't want you to kind of take those steps and kind of eat into what they have going on. So,
Lou, I am from the Turks and Caicos Islands, as you are well aware.
mhm,
And there's a large Haitian community here,
mhm,
and there's this growing concern that the Haitian community will one day outnumber us.
mhm,
So that's why I asked the question as to what will be the plans to revitalize Haiti.
sure,
Because that's a growing concern with the local population here,
mhm.
and sometimes that's met with a lot of uh,
I get it.
what's the word?
I know
Yeah,
just.
it's a lot. It's a lot
Hmm.
of
I
xenophobia.
got you.
That's that's the word I'm looking for.
Hmm.
So I had to pose that question
Sure.
because I want to know ultimately what's the end goal
Mhm.
of all of this.
Sure.
Will we get a revitalized Haiti one day? Will we get that leadership?
Hmm.
Because the whole Caribbean is dependent on a thriving Haiti.
Sure.
Haiti has to thrive one day.
Sure.
And so I'm hoping that efforts like what you're doing sparks change,
Mhm.
ignites change, and reinstill international, I mean, a national pride.
Sure.
You know,
Sure. So in regards to a strong Haiti, I mean, so theoretically speaking, like what I was talking about the corruption, a lot of the corrupt dollars that are stolen from the country's budget, essentially, or treasury, is in like the Dominican Republic, right? So Dominican Republic right now has like a real estate boom, right? So people are buying condos, houses, everything you could think of, right? And a lot of Haitians happen to be invested in the real estate in the Dominican Republic. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of hardworking Haitians who save their money and just kind of want to buy a condo. But to me, you have to ask the question sometimes if there, say, like 5, 10 politicians that have, we'll call it a handful of apartments in Dominican Republic, the pay in Haiti can't be, I don't know, right? I'm just going to assume it can't be that great that you're able to like own condos in Dominican Republic in a relatively competitive real estate market. So meaning like people are, you have competition. It's not just the Haitians buying, you have the Venezuelans, the Colombians, whatever, right? So if you take that another step further in terms of just on the corruption issue, people who are buying who have bank accounts in Panama, people who have bank accounts in the US. People, I mean, there was a Haitian politician who spent $4 million on a mansion in Canada. You have to like,
U.S.
yeah, yeah, $4 million, yeah, in Canada. It's all in the news. So my thing is, if you really want a strong Haiti, you have to kind of address the corruption because there's no possible way that all these politicians are making that much money in the country where, quote unquote, it's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, right? Like, it, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, if the governments really want to start like being aggressive about like repatriating the money and like, just going after the corruption, you would start to see the country, hypothetically speaking, if they get the money back and put it towards building the roads and bridges and everything else, you would see less people, I would imagine, coming to Turks and Caicos, Bahamas, Dominican Republic, etc. Because it's not just the how bad the situation is. It's like what do you have to go through every day to live in that situation, right? So,
Yeah.
people always talk about food insecurity in Haiti, but what does that actually mean? It's a big word, but no one knows what that means. I think. And to me, well, what it means is that instead of going to the market and buying the food that you want for the day or 2 days or whatever, you have to stand online. So you're standing online in the hot Caribbean sun, God knows how long the line is, and then you have people screaming left and right. People are coming in angry. It's not a good situation. And if
Yeah.
you add to that on top of what the gang warfare has caused, where people are being displaced left and right, and they're in a new neighborhood and they got to find something to eat, but then they have to dodge bullets, and then it's still hot, and then it's raining at a certain point because the weather can be a little crazy in the Caribbean at times. It's going to make for a bad situation. So when people are presented with the opportunity to immigrate to a new country, you know, as opposed to this situation that they're in currently, it just looks better just because, I just don't want to wait online, 2 hours just to get some food for the day or 2 days and then have to do it again and then have to do it again. So then, immigrating to Turks and Caicos where you may not have the papers that you need to be, regarded as like lawfully abiding by the law just looks better than just being in a situation where it is.
That
But on the Turks and Caicos side, I can understand too because you're seeing these people coming in and they don't have the right proper paperwork, so you can't trace who these people are. There's no security, so it's like, who do you talk to, right? It's like if I'm a Haitian and I travel to Turks and Caicos without papers, like who are you as a Turks and Caicos customs official or whatever talk to, so I can make sure that this person isn't like a killer or someone who hurts children or whatever, right? There's so many different kinds of crimes out there. So I can understand it on both sides because we're having the same issue in the U.S. where people, President Trump is, going after a lot of different communities. So, but in essence, it's the same thing. In the Dominican Republic, they had the same issue with when they did away with the birth certificate, the birth citizenship for a lot of the Haitians there. Um, I don't necessarily agree with that. It was a Supreme Court decision. Me personally, I didn't agree with it, but I'm not in DR, so I don't necessarily deal with what they're dealing with. But again, they're entitled to do what they have to do for their country. The issue is could it be done in a more humane way? Yes, but really, at the heart of the issue is, well, what is being done in Haiti to actually fix the situation where people aren't willing to risk their lives on a boat,
Yeah.
on a rickety
Yes.
boat, willing to go to the U.S. to, be humiliated by Trump and, wherever else, and go to other countries where they're not necessarily being treated fairly. So they have to, you can't legislate what another country can do in their own land, but you can fix your own country, and so you don't have to do that. And I think, at least from my experience, where we screened Maransara and kind of brought it to different communities, the Haitians that I meet that have immigrated to the U.S. and other places, they want to go back and they want to be able to fix their country. I remember talking to some teachers that kind of immigrated from Haiti to the U.S. in Massachusetts, I believe, and one of the teachers was telling me about she just misses her circle where she would kind of commiserate with the fellow teachers, just kind of be in her neighborhood and be in her element. And I think a lot of people are outside of their element, and that kind of adds to the frustration. But I think if Haiti was kind of headed in the right direction, a lot of people would probably go back. Not everyone, obviously, but I think a lot would.
A good portion of it. Lou, I just want to commend you and your team for documenting the history of your country and also showing that side of the commerce business that we don't see. I would have never thought women played such an integral role in the sustainability of communities in Haiti. Never would have thought that.
Mhm.
And so that film was an eye opener for me. And it also, like, there's Haitian communities here.
Sure.
Now that I've watched that film, I got a better perspective of the business aspect of these
Sure.
communities. So you've done a fantastic job, you and your team. And I just want you guys to not stop there. It's been 4 years since that project was rolled out. And I want you guys to continue to put out more of these projects because you never know who eyes is gonna land on. And you never know the opportunities like this. The next leader who can unite the country could be listening to this podcast
Absolutely.
and reach out to you guys. You don't know. So all I can say is stay consistent with what you guys are doing, because the entire Caribbean is dependent on Haiti's success. Haiti must become strong again. It's not a question of ifs and buts. It has to.
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate the platform, and I want to thank the team at Radio Turks and Caicos for kind of passing my information along to you and connecting with us. So really do appreciate it. I always appreciate talking to Caribbean audiences, as many different islands as we can. So we're always trying to kind of bring a different perspective with this film and on the country with Maransara, but also create a pathway for other Caribbean makers. I don't know much about like French Guyana, but it's part of the Caribbean. I want to see a good film about it. Turks and Caicos, same thing. So we're trying to doing stuff like this. Hopefully, will create a pathway for other Caribbean filmmakers, whether they be in the U.S., Canada, or wherever. To come in. Talk to you. Obviously, if you want to, give them a platform so we can kind of create those bridges and kind of build on that ecosystem that I kind of mentioned. so we can kind of grow the pie instead of competing with each other for small scraps. So yeah, so hopefully at a certain point we are going to bring the film to Turks and Caicos. We were talking to a couple of public libraries over there. So we're working on a few things. So hopefully, at a certain point, we'll be there to screen it for the people and have those discussions.
For sure, man. Looking forward to it. And we ain't done yet. It sounds like you're trying to
Oh no,
leave,
no,
but we
no,
ain't
no,
done.
absolutely, absolutely.
Now, we do have a second half of the
Okay,
show where my audience or my guests, sorry, push their
sure.
peers. So any words that begins with the letter P or one word or words that begins with the letter P that has been transformational to your journey, you now have the opportunity to push your peers. So any words.
Persistence. Persistence for us is very key. So I think a lot of the times, you know, a lot of the times I won't say just for the Caribbean, but for Black people in general, persistence is like the one thing sometimes I think we're lacking in terms of like getting to that next level. A lot of the times, from what I see, people have the right idea. Like even like for example, Radio Turks and Caicos. I've never been to Turks and Caicos, but I heard about it on the radio. No, I heard about it on Facebook actually. So I was looking at the live stream. I was just like, well, I don't know what happens in Turks and Caicos. Let me just check it out. So I just kind of checked on a few Facebook videos, and I was like, oh wow, this is kind of cool. And then I was like listening to like who advertises on the radio, and I was checking out like other different stations in Turks and Caicos just to kind of see what other people are doing, and I heard some good stations, good music, but then like the videos kind of stopped. Then there would be a gap between 2024 and 2025 heading into 2026. But I think if
Right.
we are able to kind of stay persistent with what we're doing, even if you're getting, we'll call like 1,000 views, 2,000 views, it kind of builds on it. And then people kind of see the consistency, and that kind of pushes people to kind of, want to approach the radio station, or who knows? Like you said, you never know who's watching. And even with us, and kind of this applies to the Maransara as well too, we stayed persistent in terms of screening the film. So I've done screenings where there was just one person in the crowd, but I still did it. I've done screenings where there's like a couple, handful, let's say like 100. We've done screenings with 1,000 people online during COVID. So life. I don't. I'm not a philosopher, but life is like a roller coaster sometimes. So you just have to kind of stay on it and stay consistent, and eventually you'll find your level and find your balance. And even with the Maransara, these women have to dodge all kind of dangers just to kind of get to a marketplace where they don't know if they're going to make money or not, right? Because it's not guaranteed. But they go anyway, no matter what, because they have to. They see the bigger goal in terms of like feeding their family, putting their kids through school, whatever. And I think sometimes when you feel like you want to like quit and give up, you have to kind of stay persistent and kind of get up even when you don't want to, and still keep hammering away, because eventually you'll get to a place where you want to be. I mean, I this is 5 years in terms of Manassar like screening the film, and this is the first time I've been on like Turks and Caicos radio. So if I would have gave up 2 years ago, I would have never got this experience. So you just got to kind of stay consistent and persistent, and eventually we'll get there.
Lou, there was something in the film that stood out to me. It's this mother. She had four children, and she said, "I put all these children through school just doing this."
Mhm.
And it showed me that sometimes we feel like we need high paying jobs and all these other things. Sometimes you just got to make those sacrifices, man, if you want to achieve something great. And for her to put four children through school as a single parent mother selling just fruits and vegetables every single day, I mean, that's a superhero. She's a superhero in my view, and it's a powerful film, not only about Haitian women,
Yeah.
but the power and strength of Black women in general, and that perseverance that they've showed throughout the centuries to get us to where we are now. As a community, as a Black community, we will not be where we are without the sacrifices of our grandmothers, our great grandmothers. And I think that film embodies that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Even like I remember during the pandemic, like, people always talk about the Haitian Revolution and you always hear about the men, Christophe, Dessalines, whoever. And this kind of, I guess, would apply to all the islands in terms of, our different paths toward independence, even in the US. But you rarely hear about like the women who kind of contributed, huge parts to it. And even with Haiti specifically, yeah, I read about some of the women like Senator Belair, Catherine, I forgot her name, I don't want to, but there's a lot of women that kind of participated in the revolution, and I'm sure probably the same for the Turks and Caicos, who kind of participated but didn't get the spotlight and the praise that they kind of deserved. So this film kind of speaks to that as well too, kind of putting putting their giving them the proper place in society in terms of their importance, but also kind of highlighting what they could be if they were given the proper investment, and the ecosystem was kind of built around them to a certain degree, because what they do is essentially like what Amazon does. Essentially, they just bring goods from one place to another. All these big trucking companies that are worth billions of dollars, and logistics, transportation, all of that is essentially what they do. But they're not given the opportunity to kind of rise to those levels because, you have the patriarchy, you have corruption, like all kinds of stuff. So I think, part of the film kind of speaks to that, like lost opportunity. And I think, you know, even though the Maransara is kind of focused on Haiti, you have like turn hands, they call them in St. Kitts and Nevis, hawkers in Barbados, I think higglers in Jamaica, I'm sure that there might be another name for them for Turks and Caicos, but the point is like we want to invest in these women and we want to invest in around these women too, so we can kind of one day, we'll see, let's say like a Maransara and the Turks and Caicos ringing the stock market bell in New York because they just closed this big deal, and good things spread around. So we want to kind of highlight the good that we have here in America, but also in the Caribbean, and kind of build on the promise that we deserve.
Final question.
Mhm.
What would be your message now? You've spoken about the diaspora and them coming together potentially one day to work together to alleviate some of these issues. But what will be your message now to persons listening in, having having talked about your film, having talked about the issues in Haiti, having talked about the struggles of the everyday Haitian and alien, why this reluctance for them to go back. What would be your advice now to the diaspora listening in?
So I guess for the Haitian diaspora, I would say if there's a way to come up with, a 5 point out of 10 point, just five very simple things to get done for the benefit of the country, that would be a huge step in the right direction. Whether it be, let's just throw all the money at the airports and let's fix the airports. Like, that's it. Like, don't make it too complicated. Just go with the simplest thing. So that would be one thing for the Haitian diaspora. Two, and this would be to, like, the authorities in Turks and Caicos, the Dominican Republic, wherever you find a huge Haitian population. I would say look into the money that is emigrating from Haiti, that is going into the economies, because more often than not, those people who are investing tens of millions of dollars, if you kind of look up the source of that money, you probably find some, we'll call it shenanigans, legal shenanigans. And if you're able to repatriate that money towards, the right people in Haiti who are willing to, put it in the right places, I think you'll see very quickly that people will want to kind of go back. So you can kind of kill two birds with one stone, essentially. You know, lessen the temperature, in regards to the xenophobia and immigration, and also help your fellow Caribbean nation. So there's a lot of couple different messages in what I want to say, but I'd say that if you want to see the fastest way to kind of get some stuff done, that would be my two. So
Charles, I just want to thank you for coming on Pushing Your Peers podcast. It has been a great show filled with so many gems. And again, I just want to encourage you and the team. We need more, man. We need more.
sure, sure.
Like, oh, don't take your foot off the pedal. You say 5 years.
Hmm.
So we need 5 more projects in the next 5 years.